Good morning from the outskirts of Phoenix. The Santan Mountains are at the horizon, and this is the second day of wandering around the Arizona desert. Today, I'm headed for Saguaro National Park, but instead of hopping on I-10, I'm gonna take the Scenic route. I've got a rental 2014 Triumph Tiger 800 XC, a full tank of fuel, and a mostly off-pavement track to follow. Should be a good day. This series of dirt roads heads southeast toward the Santa Catalina Mountains. It's really interesting how the plants around you are constantly changing depending on your elevation and proximity to a wash. You get saguaros, prickly pears, yucca, and thick groves of short trees, all within a pretty short distance. There are all these big rocks scattered around the base of Cottonwood Hill. I wonder how they got here. This is cattle country. There are lots of little washes crisscrossing the desert, and it seems there's enough vegetation for the cows to eat. I spotted this little two-track that provides access to a gas pipeline, and had to check it out. As far as I can tell, these signs are just telling me not to go digging around in the dirt. I don't know about you, but two-track like this is my favorite type of road for an adventure bike. While the main road follows the contours of the land, this one is arrow straight and crosses any hill or wash that's in its way. It looks like there is a single-track trail that I missed. Oh well. This Triumph isn't exactly a single-track weapon, but it's pretty amusing on this two-track.
That was well worth it. Super fun.
The two-track took me backwards a couple miles on my track, but I don't mind going around these sweeping corners again. I'm leaving Willow Springs Ranch, though this is the first indication I was on a ranch at all. This is the second grader I've found in as many days. Not a bad view of the Santa Catalina Mountains in the distance. I found a nice little spot in the wash to have some breakfast. I have some peaches. Nice to have a little bit of shade. I have a short section of pavement past Biosphere 2, past Oracle to the town of Mammoth, which started as a mining camp in 1876. The building on the corner is an abandoned 1930s bar called the Blue Front Inn. There is a door for the cocktail lounge and a door for dancing. Just outside town is the ghost of the San Pedro River, also known as a wash. Well, I suppose we know where the water in the river went. I'm going to follow the San Pedro River for a while now. Several mammoth kill sites have been discovered in this valley, so it makes a little more sense why the last town was called Mammoth. These sites had stone tools and the remains of mammoth, bison, and horses that were dated between 11 and 12,000 years ago. Also found here was the first evidence that the Clovis people had hearths for cooking. I imagine that it looked a little bit different when mammoths were still roaming around this valley. Now it's just the saguaros towering over the landscape. This trip is the first time I've seen them, and I can't get enough. They are such cool plants. I turned away from the San Pedro River on Redington Road that winds up and over a pass between the Rincon and Santa Catalina Mountains. The beginning of the road is densely filled with saguaros, but as the road climbs, they're replaced by ocotillo and prickly pears, and lots of little palo verde trees. A little ways up, I was treated to a lovely view of the San Pedro River Valley with the Galliuro Mountains in the distance, and some sort of helicopter behind me. What a road! Coming from the heavily forested East Coast, it's amazing to have unobstructed views in every direction. I got to test the Rental Triumph suspension on some water bars. Not too bad. The clanking is the center stand, I think. I hope. This is the high point of the route, Redington Pass at 4,300 feet. Off in the distance are the Rincon Mountains and Saguaro National Park. As I round the corner, the city of Tucson is sprawled out in the valley below, with the Tucson Mountains at the horizon. Need to keep my eyes on the road, not the view. These washboards caused the front ABS to release the brakes, which was pretty unnerving staring down a hairpin corner. I had to test the brakes a few times to get my confidence back. Up until then, the front ABS had been doing remarkably well on loose dirt roads. So I've looked it up, and apparently you can turn off the ABS on this model. I just didn't do the right button dance. All I could see were the 2 trip meters. These groves of saguaros on the side of the mountain are so beautiful. Just watch out for sprinter vans. They will stop at nothing to get their boondocking spot. Sadly, all dirt roads come to an end, but I got some twisty tarmac as a consolation prize. Tar snakes are the only snakes I managed to see on this trip. Oh, beans. Roadwork ahead. That is one of the best warning signs I've ever seen. Anyway, welcome to Saguaro National Park East. It's a windy one-way road through this lovely valley with Mount Lemmon at the horizon. These two clearly survived the hill just fine. Well, I suppose it's time to relax and take in the scenery. Up ahead are the Javelina Rocks, a lovely little outcropping of gneiss. It was a perfect place to wander around and stretch my legs. Pretty photogenic too, don't you think? These are the infamous teddy bear cholla. They look fuzzy, but they will attach parts of themselves to you very easily. Having stopped for exactly the right amount of time, I now had the rest of the road to myself. All the way to the park exit. It was a California stop, or at least that's what they called it in my MSF course. Behold, the great airplane boneyard, where the military saves their old aircraft for a rainy day. Not that it ever rains here. I would love to ride around in there, but that's not going to happen, so I'll do the next best thing, and visit the Pima Air and Space Museum. I ended up spending an hour and a half wandering around there and gawking at their impressive collection of aircraft. There was even one of these guys putting on a show across the road when I arrived, but I was too slow on the draw. There were lots of World War II planes, and even a kamikaze rocket, which was pretty eerie to see. But even stranger was the kamikaze trainer, which traded its explosives for a second pilot's seat. On a lighter note, there were some old Air Force Ones, a Boeing Super Guppy, an ironically named B-36 Peacemaker, a space shuttle simulator, and some Soviet MiGs. Not a bad way to spend an afternoon. As you can see, it's not a small collection of planes. Now I had a quick jaunt across town to go see the western unit of Saguaro National Park, past the abandoned Spanish Trail Motel, and some very fancy houses on the edge of town, and up Gates Pass Road, which is a great little stretch of prime motorcycle road. Provided there aren't cars in front of you at the best part. But instead of being grumpy about it, I just turned around and rode it again. This bike has a real gem of an engine. The overlook here has some lovely views. Would you look at that? The road's magically clear now. I do need to learn a little patience now and again when it comes to windy roads. Just relax and wait for it to clear. There's no sense in sitting behind a line of cars, stewing in my helmet. And now that the road is straight, I can just take in this magnificent saguaro forest. Welcome to Saguaro National Park West. I think I prefer this area over the eastern unit. It feels more open, and if you only have time to see one, I think this is the one. It looks out over the Avra Valley with the Rosque Rouge Mountains in the background. And it sits on the other side of the mountains from Tucson, so it doesn't feel quite so close to the city. Don't miss Hohokam Road. It's a beautiful dirt road that winds through hills filled with saguaros. It's not as busy as the paved sections of the park either. Are you ready for some cactus facts? Because here comes some cactus facts. These saguaros often live to be 150 to 200 years old. They routinely grow to be over 40 feet tall, and the tallest recorded was 78 feet. They can weigh over 2 tons. Their ribs allow them to swell and store rainwater quickly after a storm. Their spines not only protect them from animals, but provide shade in the summer and insulation during cold winter nights. And they grow arms to increase the number of flowers they produce to aid in reproduction. But it takes 50 to 75 years to grow their first arm. Well, that's enough cactus facts for now, but they may come back in a future video. This road has a dead end, but I figured out I would find out what was there. It used to connect to Picture Rocks Road, but now it looks like it's only for hikers and horses. There's some sort of stone structure built into the hill. Turns out it's a toilet from the 1930s. The light was starting to get really nice. Next time I'll need to stay until sunset. But I had to get back to Phoenix for the night, and I didn't particularly want to ride in the dark. I had planned to take the old Florence Highway, but I had a headache brewing and I just wanted to get back to the Airbnb, so I-10 it was. Cool, an old railroad water tank. The highway threads the needle between the Pichacho Mountains and passes an abandoned strip mall. Google offered an alternate route off of the highway, and I gladly took it. This is a much better place to watch the sunset. Well, I finished my day as I started it, looking at the Santan Mountains. I rode 306 miles today. There's a link to the GPS tracks in the description if you're interested. If you're still here, thanks for coming along. And stay tuned for some fun in a narrow canyon.